If you thought Göbekli Tepe was old, we just discovered something even older. In 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt found something in southeastern Turkey that broke history. 12 T-shaped limestone columns, carved from solid bedrock, arranged in a circle on a hilltop. No writing, no metal tools, no evidence of farming anywhere nearby. The site was called Gobekli Tepe. At 11,600 years old, it became the oldest monumental structure ever discovered, built by people who, according to every textbook on the planet, were supposed to be too primitive to build anything at all. The academic world did what it always does when faced with something it can't explain. It found the most conservative answer available. Gobekli Tepe was ceremonial. People came, did their rituals, and left. Nobody actually lived there. That explanation lasted 25 years, mostly because nobody was willing to look too hard at what it implied. Then in 2019, archaeologists started digging 35 kilometers away and found a site called Karahantepe, up to 12,000 years old, which means it predates Gobekli Tepe by as much as 400 years. And what they pulled out of the ground made Gobekli Tepe look like a practice run. The site sits on a high limestone plateau between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Şanlıurfa province. Same region as Gobekli Tepe, same time period, same T-shaped pillars. The difference is that Karahantepe wasn't a place people visited for ceremonies. It was a place people built their lives for 1,500 consecutive years, with an organizational complexity that archaeologists are still struggling to fully describe. Under Professor Necmi Karul of Istanbul University, excavations have uncovered over 250 T-shaped limestone pillars, matching Gobekli Tepe's style but denser, more intricate, and notably more human in their imagery. The pillars on the western and eastern terraces are arranged in circular formations, some forming what Karul describes as large communal buildings with floors carved directly from the limestone bedrock. And then they found the amphitheater, a circular structure 17 meters in diameter, cut entirely into bedrock. Tiered stone benches running around the perimeter. Inside the walls, human faces, sculpted directly into the stone, staring outward at whoever occupied those seats. Seated human statues positioned on the ground level, facing inward, as if watching something happen in the center. This is the oldest known amphitheater on Earth, built roughly 4,000 years before the Greeks came up with the concept, by people who had never farmed a field, written a word, or seen a wheel. The details only get harder to process from here. In 2025, the excavation team pulled out a T-shaped pillar with something carved at the top that nobody had seen before. A human face, prominent brow ridge, deep-set eye sockets, a nose that protrudes forward from the stone. This is the first human-faced Neolithic pillar ever found anywhere on Earth. Every comparable site from this period, Gobekli Tepe, Çatalhöyük, Navali Chori, use abstract forms, geometric shapes, symbols you can interpret multiple ways. At Karahantepe, someone looked at a block of limestone and carved a face into it, which raises a question that's genuinely hard to sit with. Whose face was it? Then there's the room. Archaeologists refer to it carefully as the ritual space. It contains 11 large penises carved from bedrock, arranged in deliberate formation. Watching over them from the wall is a bearded head with a serpent's body, emerging directly from the stone. The room has its own entrance and exit, separate from the rest of the complex, and a carved channel that may have directed water through the space. Karul's team believes this was a site for rites of passage, that members of the community passed through this room as part of a ritual whose specific meaning were unlikely to ever fully recover. In the floor of a different structure, they found bread, charred remains of baked grain, carbon dated to 12,000 years ago, the oldest known bread on Earth, predating what we previously considered the beginning of agriculture. Alongside it were stone mortars, grinding stones, and sickle blades, showing that wild grains were being harvested, processed, and baked by people who, by the conventional timeline, had no business knowing how to do any of that. Here is the problem this creates for anyone who writes history curricula for a living. The story taught in schools goes like this. Nomadic hunter-gatherers discovered farming. Farming made permanent settlement possible. Settlement built communities, and communities eventually produced cities, writing, monuments, and everything else we call civilization. It's a clean sequence. It makes logical sense, and Karahantepe makes it almost impossible to defend. The people who built this place, who designed an amphitheater, carved human portraits into stone, maintained a ritual complex, baked bread, and organized communal life in structured housing, did all of it without cultivating a single crop. There is no evidence of farmed vegetation at Karahantepe, a settlement built entirely before the agricultural revolution that supposedly made settlements like this possible. Professor Carl stated it as plainly as it can be stated. Our findings change the perception, still seen in schoolbooks across the world, that settled life resulted from farming and animal husbandry. This shows that settled life begins when humans were still hunter-gatherers, and that agriculture is not a cause, but the effect of settled life. Agriculture didn't create civilization. Civilization created agriculture. Everything downstream of that, the entire sequence we've been teaching for generations, gets harder to defend. The gaps in what we know are, honestly, just as interesting as what we've found. Karahantepe is part of a region Turkey has named Taş Tepeler, Stone Hills, a network of at least 12 known archaeological sites spread across more than 100 kilometers, all from roughly the same era. Göbekli Tepe is one of them. Karahantepe is another. The remaining 10 have barely been touched. Turkey has committed around $14 million to expand excavations and establish a Neolithic research center, though no firm timeline exists, which means the ground is still holding most of its answers. There are things about Karahantepe nobody can explain yet. Almost no female figures appear anywhere at the site, a pattern consistent enough to raise serious questions about the social structure of whoever built it. The full function of the ritual space remains unclear. The amphitheater's specific purpose, performance, ceremony, governance, something we don't have a word for yet, is unknown. The carved faces in the walls might represent ancestors, might represent gods, or might represent something that doesn't map onto any category we currently use. 12,000 years ago, somewhere between the Tigris and Euphrates, a group of people who had never planted a field built an amphitheater with human faces in the walls, baked bread in their homes, performed rituals in a room we can barely describe without raising eyebrows, and sustained that community without interruption for 15 centuries. Our best archaeologists are still arguing about what to call what they built, and there are 10 more sites just like it, sitting in the ground nearby. We haven't opened them yet. If you want to be there when we do, subscribe.